policy in Nigeria has come under scrutiny a number of times since the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. Foreign policy watchers have examined statements, read body language, and tried to glean from what is being said and what decisions are made. During the week, Nigeria's international relations think tank, the Institute for International Affairs, during a one-day conference, tried to make meaning of all the factors. The conversation has been going on for months, and the question asked whether Nigeria has a strong foreign policy and if it is being reflected in her relations with the international community. The Nigerian Institute of International Affairs decided it was time the issue was examined by foreign affairs professionals. So here they are, gathered at the Louis Mbanefo Rotunda at the Institute for the discussion, chaired by former Nigerian ambassador to the United States, George Obiozo.
It's time for assessment, and there's no better place to do it or better people to do it than the kind of people assembled here today. And the Institute, from my point of view, it's an applied research institute. Quite often, whatever is done here finds its way along considerations of the government in situ for policy formulations.
The plan is to examine all areas of Nigeria's foreign relations with continental body, the African Union, the ECOWAS, the United Nations, BRICS nations, and the fight against corruption, which has been commended by the international community. Interestingly, the professionals stayed a little longer on this aspect of Nigeria's foreign policy because of the image it represents to the outside world.
Now, fighting corruption for Nigeria is an existential issue. I think that everybody in this room knows that, and I don't think that there's any debate. It is generally thought that corruption has no victims, and that there is no opportunity cost of corruption. But there is an opportunity cost of corruption. We know that corruption virtually cost Nigeria her territorial integrity when Boko Haram seized a number of territories in northeastern part of Nigeria, because the money that was meant to kit soldiers and to buy equipment was diverted by top military brass. We know that corruption has prevented Nigeria from meeting sustainable development goals, has diminished the opportunity and the capacity for providing infrastructure, is the main reason why you and I do not get paid the kind of salaries that we deserve, and there are individuals who have been in government who are richer than their states. So anybody who argues that corruption is not an existential issue for Nigeria, and it is not a significant factor for Nigeria not being able to play her role, even as the so-called giant of Africa, the person is not thinking very deeply and rationally. All the signs are around us. And as elites, we're very quick to use our fault lines to justify. When the issue is rape, when the issue is kidnapping, when the issue is murder, we're unanimous in our condemnation of the issue. But when it is corruption, then you begin to say, okay, is it religion? It's because it's from the other party. It's because it's from another ethnic group. You know, then you quickly throw up. But Nigeria is a very interesting place to be, and sometimes people describe us as being very strange. But the reality is that with regard to the fight against corruption, the foreign policy of the government does align with the government's focus and agenda in the fight against corruption. When we started, and when I say we, I mean the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, given the background of members, we know that fighting corruption was not going to be a tea party. So the very first strategy and policy document that we gave as an advisory to government, which was adopted, was that we must recover stolen assets. We may not know how you stole the money because you are so clever, we cannot prove criminality against you. But if you have assets that you cannot account for, we will take it. So if you can account for it, just come and say, this is mine. I got a legacy from my father. The money dropped down from heaven or something. So if you can prove it, then you can keep the asset. And this was the first strategy document and advisory that we gave in December 2015. We started our work in August 2015. Because we know that those who have deep pockets will challenge every step of the way through the legal process. And the rule of law is only touted when the rich are on trial, not when the poor are on trial. The same vein, Nigeria's foreign policy with regard to this is on asset recovery, especially because a lot of our assets, as you know, some of you might have heard of a debate and even a proposed bill in the National Assembly whereby they were saying, well, okay, instead of arresting people who have stolen, why don't we get them to invest the money in the economy and we can just wink and look the other way. Kleptocrats, especially grand kleptocrats, they don't keep stolen assets within jurisdiction for obvious reasons. They ship them out.
Professor of International Relations at Leeds City University, Ibadan, and former ambassador to Belgium and the European Union, Alaba Ogunsanwo, examined Nigeria's relations with BRICS countries and noted that she appeared more committed to her relations with China.
There has, however, been a noticeable acceleration in our relations with China under President Muhammadu Buhari. In a recent speech to the Council of Retired Federal Permanent Secretaries and Heads of Service in Abuja, I made reference to activities which have included the participation of the Nigerian government and the Chinese government in several areas of economic collaboration. Some of these recent developments are mentioned in the paper. Some follow-up to Buhari's the development of the visits to China are also mentioned here. There are statistics relating to grants and loans and various programs that the Nigerian government has invited China to participate in.
The impact of these discussions is what is sought after. However, time will be the determinant if their suggestions make the right impact. During the event, I had a chat with Professor of History and International Studies Abolade Adeniji on some aspects of Nigeria's foreign policy.
Your activism or otherwise on the foreign terrain is usually directly dependent, on the resources at your disposal. It is not as if it's like what it was in the 70s when we had some excess funds, oil money and all that, and we could afford to raise our shoulders, and then make waves. When your finances are the way it is now, you have to be very careful. You don't want to dabble into things that you will not be able to prosecute successfully. So I would argue that one of the constraints that the current administration has had is that some other things have arrested its attention. Boko Haram crisis, Nigerian economy that is dysfunctional and all that. Not many people, don't give credit to the role that ex-President Olusegun Obasanjo played, in bringing this organization into being, especially against the backdrop that the suggestion was what made by Muammar Gaddafi. But he would have been shot dead, but for, Obasanjo's sagacity and his ability to build some consensus around it. So the organization has come into being. And one thing you must give to this administration, the Buhari administration, is that unlike some other administration we have known, in the foreign policy sphere, it has maintained some degree of continuity. It has not rocked the boat. In the African Union, I identified about 3 things, for which we have been fairly active. Of course, the controversial one is our refusal to accede, that is to sign the agreement on the African Free Trade Area. Well, the president or the government says it is making broad consultation. And in fact, a committee has been set up to advise the government on this issue. But there are many who will say that, look, we didn't handle a number of things well. The Federal Executive Council had met, had agreed that we're going to accede, that we're going to sign, and then suddenly from the blues, the president says, I'm not going, I need to consider many things. It wasn't a very tidy thing. I noted that. But a committee has been set up. We hope the matter is resolved. Because you see, it is little things like this that taint your influence on the continent.